Hello, my name is Jeff Keyes. Welcome to Stack Sessions, the podcast where software engineering meets business strategy. Brought to you by All Stacks, each episode features honest conversations with CTOs, executives, and industry experts who are navigating this new reality, from managing AI-augmented teams to proving engineering value to the business, from strategic decision-making to what's actually working on the ground. We go deep on what matters. This is Stack Sessions. Today, I'm thrilled to welcome Helen Beal, the CEO of Floatopia. Helen is on a mission to bring back joy to work by helping organizations understand flow and eliminate friction. We're diving into AI, value streams, and why engineering leaders need to stop justifying their existence and start owning their value streams. Let's go. Welcome. Happy to have you on this inaugural session of Stack Sessions. I am super excited that our inaugural session is going to be hosted with Helen Beal from Floatopia. Yay! I couldn't be more excited for this conversation because of what I'm seeing in the industry is massive. But before we get to all that and diving in, Helen, we go back a ways. Give us a little history on you and me and this journey.
I am so honoured to be your first guest. I'm going to say that as my first comment. Yes, we do go ways back to 2019, pre-COVID and everything. So at that point, I was a DevOps consultant working all around Europe and the Middle East with all sorts of people doing value stream mapping as part of my sort of package of things to help people get on and stay on and create momentum in a DevOps journey. And I'd got wind of this thing called value stream management. And at the time, on my kind of standard slide template, I had a tagline at the bottom which said optimizing the flow from idea to value realization. And I was also a DevOps editor at InfoQ, still do some of that occasionally, and went to DevOps Enterprise Summit in London and saw that there were a few value stream management people there, including yourself, and set up a few interviews with my press hat on. And that's where we first met. And it was like a meeting of minds. It was like we were talking completely the same language. And that was it. Here we are still, 6 years later.
It's so true. I still remember that conversation too. I had dealt with a bunch of folks from the press side, like, tell me about what your tool does and all these different things. And our conversation was uniquely different because it immediately went into how does this help people get stuff done faster, better, more reliably? How does this, how will automation change things? What will make things more efficient? And it was dramatically different. You started a little thing, well, we kind of did it together, called the Value Stream Management Consortium. Give me a little history on that.
So I was working with you at Plutora. We were creating lots of beautiful content around these practices, around value streams. And I was also working for DevOps Institute, and COVID hit. And at DevOps Institute, we had a series of virtual conferences that we had lined up very serendipitously ahead of COVID. They started in April 2020, just as lockdowns were really kicking in. And the first topic we tackled with one of our skill updates was value stream management. And as part of that, I met a bunch of people like Jack Myers and Steve Pereira, and saw there were loads of individuals like you and I that saw this opportunity to be able to make work visible using things that we had, that using the data in our software engineering pipelines, in our DevOps tool chains. But we were quite dotted around and disconnected. So I remember I came back to you, and I think Bob was on the call, Bob Davis, CMO at the time, I think, of Plutora. And I said, I think we should try and create something like a place, a community where all these people can meet up and we can, connect us all and have a place to talk about these principles and practices. And you guys said, oh my goodness, we've been trying to do this for like a year. And I said, well, let me have a go at it because I've got a history of scrappy little startups. And, I think I can probably, magic this into being somehow. And I guess a year after that, March 2020, 21, we brought it to life.
Absolutely. DevOps Institute, automating pipelines and making them more efficient, value stream flow and efficiency and effectiveness. How has this become one of your passions? Like, where did this come from?
Certainly wasn't intentional, but I'd say there is an underlying principle to my life in that one of my missions, my main mission professionally, is to bring joy to work. And where we see a lot of joy in work is when we don't have a lot of friction. So I guess part of my passion for DevOps is around that. It's about improving the working environments for people to make sure that they get what they want done, and that it's the right thing and they're seeing the results that they want to see. And then that links very closely to what we're doing with Flow as well. You know, that's everything we're trying to do really is take the pain out of making things and making people happy.
Which brings us to today. Recently, you've had a fairly big announcement.
Yes, we have taken Floatopia live. So it's the next iteration of what was the Valley Stream Management Consortium, an all singing, all dancing Flow community.
I love it. What does Floatopia and the community offer to individuals and to businesses?
So we're a community first and foremost. So what we are doing is we're a space where value stream and flow practitioners and you know that is a broad term. That could mean an agile coach, it could mean a CTO, a CIO, it could mean a lean expert, it could mean a consultant, or it could be somebody that's working in a technology or a business team like a product manager. Anybody really that is interested in using flow principles to deliver work better and faster, and get insights into the value of the work they're doing. So the value realization element. So we are the place where people that want to learn more and practice more and get better at doing these things come to meet, to come to share their learnings with each other and their experiences. And we've also, you know, created lots of assets that people can learn from as well. So really, for an individual, you might want to join because you want to be better at what you do and it's a career development opportunity for you. So you want to put yourself in a more competitive place as a professional. Or you might be a consultant that's looking for networking opportunities and getting to know what opportunities might be out there to work with other companies who have need for your expertise. And if you are a business or an organization, a team leader or an organizational leader, you might want to engage with our community because you want to adopt these practices across your organization to influence your organizational performance. So you may be saying, I know that BMW, that Netflix, that Boeing are using value stream management principles to be more profitable, and I want a piece of that. And that's why you might want to come to Floatopia.
What are some of the successes that you've seen with people beginning to transform their organizations and implement these things? Give us some insights into how this has impacted things.
So we have a whole space in Floatopia that is dedicated to case stories. So, you know, there's more data and information there than I could possibly share in this podcast. But you know, the kind of thing that these organisations that I've just named, and there's loads more in there. And we try and add one every week. We have weekly themes, and Thursdays is the day where we post new case stories. But typically, people are removing waste out of their processes. That's the number one thing we're trying to do when we understand flow, right? So we're trying to accelerate the flow of delivery of things. And in our digital world, we're typically talking about digital products and digital services. You know, we do have lots of manufacturing involved in what we do and in our community and in our membership as well. So, yeah, the success stories you're talking about, they're all about accelerating flow. And that might mean that people are able to do things like digitally transform better. And that is a common theme. There is a case story that we're publishing tomorrow, actually, which is on TUI, which is about how they adopted value stream management and how that enabled them to digitally transform much more quickly. There's another case story that you're very familiar with, which is Health First, who in COVID had to move very quickly to deliver their services via mobile applications, which is something they typically done in physical branches across the state. And again, the way that they were able to do that so fast was using value stream management, because they were able not just to accelerate every single value stream in their organization, but really understand how their organization was a set of interconnected value streams, a value stream network. And they were able to use that information to understand how they could standardize across value streams, standardize software engineering flow and principles across each pipeline, and manage the dependencies, conflicts, and risk across the different value streams.
For those that are just starting out, what's a preview of the roadmap that an individual would go through to start adopting practices and realizing some of the successes of this practice? And I love that mentality. We want to bring joy to work. Give me the journey a little bit.
I mean, life's too short for work to be awful all day, every day, isn't it? That's my personal opinion.
I love working, but at the end of the day, I love creating and building things out, but boy, the stress and it's been a weird environment, and a lot of it are anyway, but lots of
This
conversation
is
on that one.
Yeah, I mean, this is the big opportunity for AI, isn't it? I posted something on my LinkedIn the other day exactly about this, that AI's job really is to take away all of the painful, horrible stuff that we don't want to do and just allow us to be the creative beings that we fundamentally all are as humans. But yes, we digress from your question, which was around the roadmap and where people might start. So in Floatopia, in the community, we have lots of embedded learning. So there is a Flow Fundamentals course. It's just 60 minutes. You get a digital badge at the end. And that really is like a great way to dip your toe in the water. We also have a blog and resources space. And in that, you'll find things like, what is a value stream? What is value stream management? The value stream management implementation roadmap. And that's a key one, which really is 9 steps that take you from wherever you are. And we always say this, start wherever you are. You don't have to have done DevOps. You don't have to know Lean. You don't have to be like a black belt in Six Sigma or anything. You just start on VSM wherever you are. And then you go through various different stages. And lots of people will have explored some of these stages already, like Matt. But, the first thing that you really need to do is set a vision for what you want to achieve as a flow enabled organization or from a value stream management implementation. Once you understand and you've socialized that vision and you've got your stakeholders on board, really then it's time to identify those value streams, and everyone has them. All organizations are made up of value streams because they have customers, they have products and they have services. And if they don't have customers, if there's governments listening to this, you have citizens and they're your customers. So, but everybody has somebody that is their reason for being, their purpose that they're trying to serve. Once you've identified your value streams, then you can organize around them. So typically, the people have organized around silos. This is why we have Agile. This is why we have DevOps. It's a particular problem in the technology industry because of the way that we have become, or the way that we started as back office workers, and we're kind of seen as cost centers, and the way that we've been traditionally organized. This whole cross-functional defederation of teams is a relatively new thing. And getting rid of silos is a key part of DevOps. In fact, the godfather of DevOps, Patrick Dubois, said that his definition of DevOps is actually that it's the removal of friction between silos, which is pretty much what we're trying to do with flow engineering and value stream principles. So yes, to carry on the steps on the roadmap, once we have identified our value streams and learned to organize around them, and our people are probably spread across multiple silos in what we call the business and the technology teams, we then start to work together to map our value streams, and that starts to give us a picture of every value stream, and then we can work out how they interconnect. Once we've mapped them, we can connect them, and this is the really tricky part, and this is where value stream management today is different from how it was when it sort of emerged, decades. Some people trace it back hundreds of years, but we've never before had the ability to have the data that we have today in value streams, thanks to the work we've done in digital transformation and DevOps. And then it's inspect and adapt over and over and over, a continuous improvement cycle.
There's a lot to unpack there, starting with where you are. It's about flow and reducing friction. The incorporation of DevOps is part of that process of automation, creating a vision of where you want to go, and the process of finding and inspect, and then the whole journey. I really like the part of iterating on this and just picking an area and going. Part of the value that I see, that I've enjoyed in the various companies that we both have talked to, is just the ability to pick an area and just work on improving it. It's sort of a mentality shift that we're not stuck. We can have impact wherever we sit, whatever part of the organization, we can do things.
Everyone's part of a value stream, right? Every
Yeah,
organization is made of value streams, and everyone's part of a value stream, whether it's a core value stream that is serving the customers that pay you to, survive as a business, or whether it's a supporting value stream that supports, enables those value streams to operate. Everyone is part of one. And you could argue that value stream management is no different from agile and DevOps in that it's another way of working. And like all these ways of working, if you're going to adopt it, the big bang approach is really difficult. So, to stand back and define an organization of 10, 100,000 employees and say, this is what the value stream network looks like is really, really hard. So all these organizational principles that we've learned around federation and empowering employees are really important to allow each team to fully understand who they are and how they operate, and then allow the leadership to piece together what the organization looks like.
Stacked Sessions podcast is brought to you by AllStacks. You know the challenge, connecting engineering work to revenue impact. AllStacks is the AI native platform that does it automatically. We predict delivery risks, uncover hidden bottlenecks, and spotlight high impact opportunities, all before they affect your bottom line. No spreadsheets, no manual analysis, just real time, board ready insights that prove engineering ROI and help you make confident decisions that drive business results. Learn more at allstacks.com.
Let's talk about something in what's happening in the industry right now with AI, agentic, not just AI generated code, but agents that are working almost autonomously. I was talking to CIO last week and loved her comment of, I no longer want to measure the developers' hands on keyboards. I want to get their hands off the keyboard. That's what the agents are for. That's what these tools are for, is to go write code. In this new world that is being created before our eyes and transforming, AI is having enormous impact from, I mean, truly a fantastic use case for AI is writing code. It's highly structured. There's a pattern to it. How does flow change in this world? And what are you seeing and what are you talking to people about when you look at the impact of AI generated code and code facilitation, code reviews, and all the rest of it? What are you seeing?
Can I just ask what the developers are doing when they're not coding?
That's a great point. What she commented, at least in that conversation, was that they should be orchestrating, that they are now watching. It's almost as if the developers now have an army of agents that they're the boss of, and that the organizational structure is that these developers are communicating, ensuring that what these agents are creating gets shepherded in the right way, and managing that through the process.
So they're overseeing the work, because this is my big point about AI. And, you know, some days I love AI and I think it's going to change the world for the better and it's marvelous. And then other days it just hallucinates on me horribly. And it's very apparent how much training it still needs in order to be really, truly useful. And, I already made a statement that for me, AI's promise is to take away all of the boring stuff and allow us to be the creative beings that we should be. And, I think developers like creation more than they like coding. I haven't done a survey to establish that. But I think the point I'm trying to work my way up to is that, there is a lot of hype around AI. The work actually doesn't change. The work that we're trying to do, the creation of value for our clients, for whoever we're trying to serve, remains the same. We've had automation before. Automation tries to make it faster, more accurate, take the boring stuff away. AI is doing the same things. It's just like automation on steroids, right?
Right.
It's automation that understands language. It's automation that can understand multiple steps and can start, problem solving in many ways that we haven't, been able to conceive of automation doing before. So how does AI change the work? It just makes it better, hopefully, right? When it's fully trained and tested. And for quite a long time, I think it's going to need that human oversight to make sure it's getting right. I could
Right.
give you 1,000 examples of hallucinations I've seen in just like the last couple of weeks, probably, of trying to get it to do various things. If the work we're trying to do is create a website with lots of beautiful, deep functionality and lots of products and services that people can interact with and buy and sell on our marketplaces, then what the AI will do is help us make it more functional more quickly. It will help us deal with incidents more quickly. It will help us generate images more quickly. It will help our customers go through journeys more quickly. It will help us connect to other services over the internet. More, we have a team in one of the organizations I work with that is AI enabling across the organization. And one article they shared today is about the death of the app, right? So as a user, you won't need to go into Airbnb and get your guide and Skyscanner to get a holiday. You're just going to chat GPT and say, book me a holiday in the Bahamas in March. And it'll go and get you a flight. It will go and book you some accommodation. It will go and book you a swimming with the pigs or whatever it is that you want to do. I know it's a very hackneyed example, but
No,
it's a
spot
good
on.
one.
I dream of that day. It's going to be great. We didn't touch on how to measure your maturity, I guess, with how your value stream adoption is coming. And probably the question is two-part. How are you thinking about looking at, like, what changes in terms of flow with that?
So generally, I prefer to talk about capability than maturity. I've just been, highly trained, I guess, by the Accelerate book and the State of DevOps team, the Forsgren, Kim, Humble group that very much prefer to talk about capability. I did say that the VSM implementation roadmap was a 9-step process or 9-step roadmap, and then I gave you 8. And actually, the one I didn't mention was assess. We do have a VSM assessment that we put together with our coaching huddle at Floatopia, which is available currently through Comparative Agility. And that gives a scalable model. So you can use just a few questions or a lot of questions, some kind of heuristic to understand where your teams are at. And, they could be quite soft. Like, we understand the dependencies that we have on other teams. Or they could be quite hard, that we measure our flow velocity. And we know that it takes us, between 1 hour and 1 day every time we deliver an enhancement to our product. So there's quite a few different ways that teams can assess their capability in terms of flow capability or value stream capability that we could explore. Were there any other areas you were particularly interested in?
Well, here's the deal. Just because AI can write code faster, seems like that would put more pressure on other areas of flow.
Well, this is why we had DevOps, right? So with DevOps emerged because our software development teams were working in an agile manner. So suddenly they weren't trying to release every 3 months. They were trying to release every 2 weeks. And the IT operations teams didn't know anything about what was going on, apart from they were suddenly getting 6 times as much code as they did. So yeah, the theory of constraints, nature abhors a vacuum, but in theory of constraints, what we've learned is if we accelerate work towards a blockage, where it's an illusion, right? So you're just creating a kind of a stop, a blockage, and more work there. So yeah, you're right. If one team is using AI and is suddenly able to produce much more in the manufacturing pipeline, and the next stage downstream isn't ready to handle it, then there won't be a lot of point because it's going to get us stuck. But this is, I think, where AI can really help us as well, because it will give us those insights. So it'll become immediately obvious that we need to pay our human attention to that blockage and find a way to unblock it. And this is something we've talked about actually in VSM for years now as a use case for AI, is this ability to help us understand where the blockages are, where the waste is in our value streams, and help us resolve it. And AI, some tools have had the ability to give us some advice, as we do in the assessment. You've got a blockage in your security team. It's taking 6 weeks for them to get back to you about that particular piece of work that you're trying to release. Why don't you consider, I don't know, enabling your development and testing teams, your cross-functional agile teams? Why don't you put a security person in each team so that they can rub off some of their knowledge, so that actually that you don't have to wait for the security team, because now each of your cross-functional product teams are able to answer those security questions. So the large language models allow us to give that advice, and then the next stage, some of it can be agentic. So it could be you need to, there's a test that's holding you up. I've got an agentic AI that can now document that test and automate that test for me, and keep a track on the results of that test and let a human know if it's failing every time or any time.
There was a comedian, Jeff Foxworthy, that used to make these jokes. You might be a redneck if you've got 3 cars parked in your front lawn, kind of thing. Maybe the conversation is, you're going to have problems with AI assisted coding tools if the following. So, as you think back through your various consulting experiences, what are some common themes that you would expect to emerge as people generate more code? Where are the bottlenecks going to be? And
It's a great question. And, I've been, as you've said, studying people's software pipelines from various different angles for a really long time now. And what I used to say to people is that it's kind of like a fingerprint. Every organization looks roughly the same, but they'll have if there are, say, like 100 different, um, dimensions that we're looking through, they'll have different areas where people are weaker or stronger. One way of looking at this is to see the value stream as a cycle, right? That starts with ideation. So it starts with your portfolio management and your product management, and it works all the way through into you designing and building that product and testing it, releasing it, deploying it, and then gaining feedback on it, on the value that's realized and how it's working, and then pushing that back into the start. So it's a cycle. So it goes
right,
back into your ideation. And really, at any point on those areas that I've described, we can see problems, right? So we could see people having real trouble breaking down their requirements, or real trouble describing their requirements, or real trouble communicating those requirements to the people that need to understand them to build them. We can have people that, the requirements are too big and they need to be broken down more in the design phase. And that's causing a problem in terms of the architectural elements of it. Then we've got the big coding phase, right? This is where most of the value is actually added, because it's when the product's actually built. It's when we put the components together. And yeah, people could go down the wrong route. They could build in bugs. They could not test it properly. There could be, a whole host of tests. They could have really, again, complex architectural environments that make those tests really hard to do. If we've got really big monoliths, running tests can take a really, really long time. If we've got a lot of microservices, tests are shorter, but there could be a lot more kind of things that are triggered, or a lot more dependencies that are involved when we do those tests. Releases could still be a problem. If we've got a huge amount of customers, doing a release can be a very, very dangerous time. Have we really got our progressive release strategy in place? That could be something that people need to look at. And then people might be really rubbish at getting feedback, and they might get better at that and discover that all these beautiful ideas that their business had at the start, nobody's actually using it. So all that work we just went through, all of that design and build, test and release and deployment, when it actually got there, nobody actually used it, or it didn't have a meaningful impact on the thing that we were hoping it would, which will ultimately be, I guess, our revenues and our profits. So that was a really long answer to where are the three cars on the lawn. But I would suggest anywhere, anywhere in the release cycle, the development cycle, the value stream itself.
what I particularly like is just calling out that this is an opportunity rich environment. It's not like hitting perfection. It's just pick an area and start improving it. Ideally, the slowest area and the biggest, hairiest, messiest problem, just start tackling it and take bites at it, because you're going to find that you'll get improvement in the process.
I should help you with as well, right? So, a fairly simple graph that we've used for a long time along along the x-axis is there's a problem, like how complex is it? And then, the y-axis, it's like, well, is it, how much is that problem costing us? Or how big do we think it is? And somewhere, the AI can say, this problem over here, it's not that complex, but it's going to have a big impact on, the speed of delivery, or whatever it is that you've prioritized trying to resolve.
Yeah. As you think about how part of value stream and flow is looking at specific metrics that measure those things, maybe you can give us a bit of a overview of some of those metrics and why they matter.
Well, of course, we've got the Dora metrics and the flow metrics, haven't we? It's our main set. I mean, and metrics is a big conversation. There was quite a big chat going on with Dr. Mark Peters about them the other day in one of the Floatopia chat spaces. And the problem with the metrics is people can fall into a place where they are putting too much weight on the wrong ones. So the Dora metrics are obviously very, very popular. And Brian Finster's written a lot about and talked a lot about where people go wrong with the Dora metrics, and particularly when they see them in isolation. I mentioned the book Accelerate earlier on, and the four Dora metrics are part of a much bigger picture. So when people are looking at this, and there's the 2 3-put ones. So we've got our what is it, lead time, so effectively our flow velocity and our volume of releases. And then we've got our quality metrics or our stability metrics. We've got our change fail rate and our MTTR. And then we've got the flow metrics, which relate to the flow framework. So we've got things like flow distribution. I love flow distribution. And actually, I don't think people use that enough, because what it's really telling us is about the types of work that we're doing. And it's really important to monitor, I think, during a digital transformation or any kind of transformation, because it tells us things like the technical debt, right? So at the start of a digital transformation, you probably won't see a team tackling a lot of technical debt. But as they start understanding those blockages, and that those blockages are often caused by things like dependencies, either written into business policy or written into architectural policy. They start unraveling those dependencies, and that means paying down technical debt. And you'll see people you'll see a hike in the amount of time people are spending on technical debt. And then as they start getting a handle on it all, it will drop off again. So things like flow distribution, I think, are really very interesting. But, there isn't a patented set of metrics that will suddenly resolve everything for everybody, but there are some well-established ones that people can experiment with, and start figuring out which ones work well for them.
One of the fundamental things too is Dora primarily looks at from check-in to going live. And what I like about Flow is it takes a broader view, looking at all the way from idea. How long does it take when you come up with an idea to actually get it built and put in production? There's a series of leaning from lean to pull those off. And yeah, the work distribution is fantastic. Engineering leaders today, switching gears, talking to just them, because they're in a load of pressure. They've got ever more pressure to produce results, demonstrate that they're making the most with the money. There's pressure that they have all this tooling from an executive point of view. Hey, I gave you all these tools and I'm paying big dollars for it. Prove that you're delivering more value. What advice do you give to these engineering leaders as they're competing their time between trying to prove that the AI tools are producing more value, getting stuff done? Why flow now? Why look at flow as part of this journey?
Being able to tell somebody how quickly you're going to deliver the thing that they've asked for is extremely powerful. And when you understand the flow of your product or service, you're in a position to make those sort of assurances. Engineering leaders are the lifeblood of a digital organization, and every organization in the digital economy needs to be a digital organization, right? So I think hearing, the kind of language we're using here about engineering people being under pressure from the business, I find really frustrating, because I've spent decades talking to organizations about this separation that we continue to perpetuate between business and technology. But once we start understanding our value stream, we should be able to just totally take that away and connect the dots, right? You have an idea, you deliver it to a customer. I don't care if you're in the business or technology teams, it doesn't matter. We're all holding hands along the chain to get what our customer needs to make our business more successful. The bottom line I'm trying to say to engineering leads here is that you should consider yourself the value stream leader, the owner of the value stream. Almost a product manager, if you like. A product manager often doesn't consider themselves owning the technology, but somebody needs to own the P&L for that product, that service, that value stream. So if you as an engineering leader have that conversation, I own this product, I know how much it makes, I know what we need to do in order to make it more profitable, you become much more empowered. And then you're not constantly justifying your existence or like having to defend yourself to the business, your great investors. You're part of the same team. You always were. Somehow we all need to learn how to see ourselves as the same team. And a value stream really helps do that. Sorry.
It really does. And to have a set of the understanding of flow helps the conversation of how do we get value out of it, and to justify more than just, if you're in an organization that values number of lines of code written, you're in a bad place and you need to change the conversation. The reason, I have a belief, the reason that you're getting asked about those kinds of metrics is because you're not speaking the language of the business. As an engineering leader, you're treating yourself and operating as someone who can't speak to the business. So speak the language of business. Talk about value being delivered, which is founded in understanding the flow and understanding what it is that you're creating, and use that terminology instead of, hey, we delivered X story points, because that ain't going to get you there. Okay. Kind of looking forward a bit. the future of software development and teams. Do you have anything that you believe that you're not sure the rest of the world is ready for? Like, what's one thing that Helen Beal believed?
I still believe, and I'm not alone in this, that these flow-based practices, looking at an organization as a value stream network, as value streams, and learning to manage an entire organization that way is the way that we will unlock all of the promises that we've had from things like Agile and DevOps. Agile's had some really bad press recently. And we've all been very distracted. I found it very frustrating, actually, the AI hype. I think we're getting to a place now where people are really using it in anger. We're really starting to see some benefits from it. I still think there is some way to go in terms of getting it fully trained, but I'm quite hopeful that it's going to enable us to almost kind of get back to work shortly. So it's going to deliver on its promises. So we're going to be able to really focus on, creating new products. It's going to be there behind the scenes doing wonderful things that will help us, as you've described, it will help the developers just dictate what we need to build, and it will go off and build it, and it will automatically test it, and we'll create wonderful experiences and joyful services for people to use on a day-to-day basis.
I love that. Um, Joyful services to use, joy in the process. We're humanizing this technology. We're inspiring the creative side of our journey and letting AI do stuff that we don't want to do. That's great. That sounds like a really fun world. Helen, this has been a fantastic journey. How do people get in touch with you and Floatopia?
They just need to head over to floatopia.io, and there they will find us.
Yeah, they'll find us. And if you need a tool that helps you track and measure along this journey as well, get a hold of Allstacks. We can help you in this journey. What a pleasure having you on this inaugural podcast this morning, and excited about the journey that people are going through. Keep the conversation going online and Floatopia community. If someone needed more one-on-one time, I'm assuming Floatopia has people more than yourself. I'm assuming there's a group of people that they can get coordinated with. Tell us a bit about the community side.
Yeah, we are a whole community. Dive in. It's free to be a Floatopian. If you want the kind of premier package, you can upgrade to a Flow Pro, which includes things like access to the BSM Foundation course and also a 45-minute coaching session with one of our Flow coaches. So, there's lots of ways to get some one-on-one time.
Yeah, and you'll notice if you go to Floatopia that Allstacks is one of the first Flow friends. There's a reason for that. One, we believe in Flow, and ultimately it doesn't matter how the code is getting written, or not just code, but requirements to be developed, the testing, the environments, the whole process is what needs to get evaluated. And for that exact reason, Allstacks is here to help you in this journey of understanding so that you can enable this process of continuous improvement and ultimately change the conversation to have everyone have a better sense of the value that they're generating. So with that, thank you. Thank you for spending time with us. I'm sure this won't be the last, and catch us online. My name is Jeff Keyes. Helen Beal, thank you very much. And until next time.
Thank you.